It wasn't anything any of us could have anticipated. There are three of us, and we grew up poor kids, lower middle class, maybe lower class, I don't know. And we had no idea that people who wanted to build houses, these developers, would take over the entire San Bernardino Valley. They'd build housing tracts everywhere. And when we buried the body of that woman on the side of the hill, we thought that would be the end of it. We got away with it. What we did that day, we'd lie there on the side of the hill and nobody would ever know. But no. The developers came in and they kept building and then cut down the orange trees of the orange farmers. One of my stepdads, well, two of my stepdads were orange farmers. My mom's been married a bunch of times. Made a bunch of money selling those acreage. Those acres, whatever. They just kept building houses. And I actually built a lot of those houses. I framed them. They're not worth a shit. We could put up a 2,000 square foot house in about 6 hours. The framing part of it. Then they'd come in and slap it with some cheap materials and install some cheaper materials inside and then sell it to some fool. And so Southern California is, what do they call it? It's fucking covered. There's a better word. It's littered with absolute trash houses that aren't worth shit. But yet, look at the prices they command. And so, some developer thought it would be nice to develop that remote area on a hillside on the south side of Little Mountain. Now, Little Mountain is a little mountain. That's why they call it that. It's just on this side of the San Bernardino Mountains. There's about, I don't know, there might be a 2-mile flat area where there was probably a lake at one time between Little Mountain and the San Bernardino Mountains. And we grew up on the south side of Little Mountain. We knew everything. We knew every square inch of that mountain. And we knew where to bury that woman, where she would never be found. But no. Developers came in there and they wanted landscape houses. They wanted houses on different levels to make it look exciting. And so they're digging. And it wasn't like we were stupid kids. I mean, we were kids when we buried her up there. We thought, no way anybody's ever going to find the body up here. No way. But those developers went in there and they started cutting pads. They call them pads. They cut a pad and then they go up a little further. They cut another pad. While they were cutting one of those pads, some worker driving one of those big cat tractors that cuts the pad yelled out, "Hey, stop it all, stop everything." So they brought the police out. San Bernardino County. My dad was a San Bernardino County sheriff. Not the sheriff, but he worked for San Bernardino County sheriffs, and he held a number of positions, including running one of the county jails. And he was out there that day. Remember, we were in the neighborhood, so we hopped on our motorcycles and rode over to, knowing that they had found that woman. And we watched as they dusted. They had those forensic scientists out there, and they were brushing things off and taking pictures. And it was just bones at that point. Bones. And we sat and we watched for hours, sitting on our motorcycles. Some of the cops looked over at us with a little curiosity. Why these kids? Well, we were older then, but why are they sitting there watching with such interest? Well, they never found out. There were no clues. There was no evidence, and we got away with killing that woman that night. And when I look back on it, I regret what we did, but she was going to kill us. We had just been out at the park. Rode our motorcycles over to the park, and we'd stolen a 6-pack of beer from the 7-Eleven. We had a technique. You get one guy who looks like he's stealing something, and then another guy goes in and actually steals something and walks out the door. It worked perfectly. We got all our beer free forever. So we're sitting at Blair Park, not far from the hillside where we buried her body, and she came up with a gun. She was wearing a white overcoat, which we thought was kind of weird. It's like, I've never seen a woman with a gun. I've never seen a woman with a gun and a white overcoat. What the fuck? She was screaming at us, "Give me your money! Give me your wallets! Give me everything!" And she made the mistake of getting too close. And I'm going to use some phony names here. I can't. Of course, I was there, and you're going to know who I am. But I didn't kill her. One of my friends did. He jumped up and snapped her neck. He just grabbed her around the neck. I don't think he intended to kill her. But the gun scared him, and he had this adrenaline rush. And she collapsed. She fell on her back, and that white overcoat fell open, and she wasn't wearing anything underneath it. You think, as young boys, we would have been turned on by a naked body, but she was dead, and Hell, we didn't even know the term necrophilia. But it was not a turn on. She was naked and she had some nice tits. They were pretty good. If she were alive, I would have licked them tits. But she wasn't alive. She was dead. And I think we would have been dead. So what we noticed was she had... we took the coat off of her before we buried her. It just seemed easier. Up on the hillside. And in one of the coat pockets there were some syringes. And so we all agreed to never talk about it again. And I've abided by that agreement until now. I realize there's no, what do they call it? Statute. And if you watch Seinfeld, I think Kramer goes, the statute of limitations. Anyway, I think there's no statute of limitations on murder, but I didn't murder anybody. I just helped bury the body on the side of the hill where we thought nobody would ever fucking start cutting into the hillside to build houses up here. That wouldn't happen, would it? Didn't even occur to us. Funny thing is, she was maybe just a few years older than us, and she was attractive. I mean, if she wasn't insane and on drugs, and we had met under different circumstances, I can imagine some things. As can most men with a lot of testosterone, which I had back then. But one of us killed her. And I think she would have killed all of us. We kept the gun. Kept the gun for a long time. Not me, but one of my other friends. I'm not trying to, what is it called? Exculpate. I'm not trying to not take blame for what happened, but now we're just drinking a 6-pack of beer we stole from the 7-Eleven, and we got this crazy woman threatening to kill us if we don't give her our wallets and all of our money and so on. And so I'm not sure. Can you really feel guilty about helping to bury the body of some crazy bitch that was going to kill us? Maybe a little, but not a lot. But they found those bones. And there were articles in the newspapers. Now, DNA wasn't a thing, but dental records were. And so they identified her. Susie. Imagine. Imagine her parents the day she was born. Well, let's name her Suzanne. People will call her Susie. Or Sue. And who knows what her life was like. Who knows what her parents were like. But she got on the wrong side. And she found herself threatening to kill 3 kids drinking beers way out in the wilderness. motorcycles parked next to us. We did this regularly. We took turns stealing the six-pack, and two of us had to go in. One had to be the decoy, and the other one had to be the guy who stole the beer and got out of the store. But we did it regularly, at least, I don't know, maybe once a month, maybe sometimes a couple times a month. And so it was quite surprising. We're sitting out there in the dark. I think it was a half moon that night. We're joking around, and we each got 2 beers. We got a 6-pack that night. And all of a sudden, out of fucking nowhere, there's a girl with a gun. I don't know how we could have done it any differently. It was just lucky that one of us was close enough to her to take her down and let's call him Joe. Joe didn't mean to break her neck and kill her, but he did. The adrenaline rush. So we only lived a couple blocks away, so we actually, myself and let's call the other guy Bill. So when I and Bill rushed home, and we got a couple shovels. And we sat on the shovels. You ever try to carry a shovel while you're riding a motorcycle? There's no way to do it. You got a clutch and a brake, and you got to shift. So you put the shovel on the seat with the shovel end coming out the back, and then you sit on it. So you got the shovel handle, like riding your nuts. Your nuts are riding on the shovel handle. So that's what we did, and we got back out there, and we took the weird coat off of her, and we dug a hole on the side of the hill. We climbed up the side of the hill about 50 feet. We thought, that's far enough. Nobody's ever going to find her up here. There were plants. The hillside was covered with plants. And we dug, took the roots out. It was a shallow grave. It wasn't deep. We didn't figure it needed to be deep. It's like, who the hell is ever going to come out here and climb up the side of that hill and find this girl? So we dug a shallow grave, and we packed it all back down, and we put the plants back on top. I'm pretty sure they died. Who knows, though? I mean, she might have served as fertilizer for those plants. It might have been a big growth. But then they found her. The developers with their big yellow machines digging shit up, making pads for houses. One, next, a little higher. And so it reminded us of that night. We all saw it in the news. At least I wasn't the one who killed her. I just helped bury the body. And I think, what do we decide to call him? Joe? It clearly affected Joe, because he had put that out of his mind. He didn't mean to kill her. He was just trying take her down and get the gun away, and he accidentally broke her neck because he was so strong and she was such a tiny. She was a feather. She was a little girl. Not a girl, but a young woman. But just 90 pounds or something. I mean, we didn't have to dig much because she was so small. We could have put her in a fucking shopping bag. I mean, she was tiny. And that's the way it goes. That's the way life turns out. We all have different experiences. That's one of mine that I've never told anybody about. I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for this. Conspirator to bury the body of a murderer, someone who was going to murder us. It was clearly self-defense, and it wasn't an intentional act. I mean, he was just taking her down, and he was so big and she was so small, he just snapped her neck and she was dead. So I don't know, but I've been living with this secret for so long. And that hillside has always haunted me. I've had nightmares about her rising from that hillside. That's all.